Ethics of representation in Korean avatars, gender, voice, and race. The emergence of virtual avatars in South Korea presents a fascinating yet troubling mirror of societal values, revealing how digital spaces can simultaneously offer liberation and reinforce existing hierarchies. As platforms like Zepeto, Ifland, and virtual idol groups like Naevis and Plave capture global attention, they illuminate critical questions about representation, identity, and the ethics of synthetic being creation. The Korean avatar ecosystem, while technologically sophisticated and culturally influential, demonstrates how digital embodiment can both challenge and perpetuate stereotypes around gender, voice, and race. South Korea's virtual avatar ecosystem represents one of the most advanced and commercially successful implementations of synthetic identity technology globally. Platforms like Zepeto, developed by Naevis, have attracted over 400 million users worldwide, creating a metaverse where digital fashion, social interaction, and identity experimentation converge. Government initiatives like Metaverse Seoul and corporate investments from entertainment giants like SM Entertainment have established Korea as a leader in virtual being development. This technological prowess, however, comes with significant ethical responsibilities that remain largely unaddressed. The platforms themselves reflect Korea's unique cultural position at the intersection of traditional Confucian values and cutting-edge digital innovation. Major agencies like SM Entertainment's Studio Realive and Pulse 9 have created virtual idols that blur the boundaries between human and synthetic performance, while research institutions like ITRI develop hyperrealistic AI avatars with advanced lip sync and expression capabilities. This ecosystem serves multiple purposes, from entertainment and commerce to education and civic services, making the ethical implications of representation particularly far-reaching. The representation of gender in Korean avatars reveals a complex negotiation between liberation and constraint. Research on Zepeto demonstrates that while the platform offers opportunities for gender experimentation, with female users frequently adopting male avatars and exploring androgynous aesthetics, these explorations often remain tethered to traditional beauty standards and social expectations. The Proteus effect, which describes how avatar appearance influences user behavior and self-perception, manifests clearly in Korean virtual spaces, where users report heightened gender sensitivity and awareness after experimenting with different avatar presentations. Yet this apparent freedom operates within significant constraints. Korean avatars predominantly reflect the Pan-Asian K-pop beauty ideal: slender bodies, large eyes, fair skin, and idealized facial proportions. These aesthetic choices, while culturally resonant, reinforce narrow concepts of desirable femininity and masculinity. The emphasis on lookism in Korean society translates directly into virtual spaces, where avatar customization options privilege certain body types and facial features over others. This digital embodiment of beauty standards demonstrates how virtual spaces can amplify rather than challenge existing hierarchies. The gendered nature of avatar roles further complicates the representation landscape. Female avatars in customer service contexts maintain stereotypical helpful and submissive demeanors, while male avatars are typically assigned to technical or authoritative roles. This division reflects broader societal expectations about gendered labor and reinforces traditional power dynamics even in supposedly liberated digital spaces. The result is a virtual environment that, despite offering unprecedented customization options, often channels users toward conventional gender performances. The construction of voice in Korean avatars reveals particularly nuanced patterns of stereotyping and cultural expectation. Research on Korean text-to-speech systems shows that synthetic female voices tend to exhibit specific characteristics: higher pitch, faster speech, clearer articulation, that align with cultural expectations of feminine communication. These vocal patterns often incorporate elements of egyo, the Korean cultural practice of adopting childlike speech patterns and tones associated with cuteness and femininity. The gendering of voice extends beyond mere pitch to encompass entire communication styles and social roles. Korean voice assistants and AI avatars demonstrate strong gender stereotyping, with female voices assigned to care-oriented tasks like cooking assistance and domestic management, while male voices handle technical or authoritative functions. This division reflects and reinforces broader cultural assumptions about gendered competencies and appropriate social roles. The emotional impact of voice gender adds another layer of complexity to avatar representation. Research indicates that male-sounding voices elicit stronger emotional responses among Korean users, particularly women, suggesting that voice gender significantly affects user engagement and trust. This finding highlights how vocal representation can influence power dynamics and emotional connections in virtual spaces, making the ethical implications of voice design particularly significant. For transgender and gender-diverse users, voice represents a critical component of identity expression and recognition. While not extensively studied in the Korean context, broader research on voice modulation in virtual reality demonstrates how voice changes and pitch adjustment tools can provide voice-related gender euphoria, and help users avoid misgendering. The limited availability of such tools in Korean avatar platforms represents a significant gap in inclusive design. The treatment of race in Korean avatars reveals perhaps the most significant ethical challenges in the ecosystem. Korean platforms demonstrate clear biases toward fair skin tones and East Asian facial features, with limited options for users seeking to represent other ethnic backgrounds. This pattern reflects broader cultural preferences for pale complexions and reinforces colorism both within Korean society and in the global communities that use these platforms. The default settings on most Korean avatar platforms privilege light skin tones, often requiring users to actively select darker options when available. This design choice, while reflecting domestic beauty standards, creates exclusionary experiences for users of color and reinforces hierarchies that equate fairness with desirability. The limited range of skin tones available on platforms like Zepeto falls far short of global diversity standards, such as those established by the Valid Library, which provides validated avatar representations across 6 Fitzpatrick skin types. Facial feature representation presents similar challenges, with most platforms beginning with Eurocentric or Pan-Asian templates that poorly serve users with African, South Asian, or Middle Eastern backgrounds. This limitation reduces the psychological embodiment and presence that users of color can achieve in virtual spaces, creating a form of digital exclusion that mirrors real-world marginalization. The absence of diverse ethnic representation in Korean avatars also reflects broader cultural attitudes toward racial diversity and multiculturalism. While Korea has become increasingly globalized, the virtual spaces created by Korean companies often maintain a culturally homogeneous aesthetic that prioritizes Korean and East Asian features over global diversity. This approach may serve domestic markets but creates significant barriers for international users seeking authentic representation. The ethical challenges of Korean avatar representation can be understood through multiple theoretical lenses. From a deontological perspective, creators have fundamental duties to respect user autonomy, dignity, and authentic self-expression. The Korean government's metaverse ethical principles, which emphasize authenticity, inclusiveness, and fairness, provide a framework for evaluating current practices and identifying areas for improvement. Virtue ethics offers another lens for understanding the moral dimensions of avatar creation. Design teams that cultivate empathy, cultural sensitivity, and inclusive thinking are more likely to create avatars that serve diverse users respectfully. However, market pressures and rapid development cycles often discourage the reflective practices necessary for virtue-based design, creating tensions between commercial success and ethical responsibility. Care ethics, with its emphasis on relational responsibility and meeting others' needs, provides perhaps the most relevant framework for avatar design. This approach would prioritize user well-being, cultural respect, and safety over engagement metrics or aesthetic appeal. The Seoul Metropolitan Government's ethics guidelines for Metaverse Seoul demonstrate how care ethics can inform platform governance, though these guidelines remain limited to public sector applications. The tension between innovation, market demands, and social responsibility creates ongoing challenges for Korean avatar platforms. While companies like Naevis and SM Entertainment have created commercially successful and technologically impressive virtual beings, they have been slower to address issues of representation and inclusion. The voluntary nature of current ethical guidelines limits their effectiveness, as companies can claim compliance without implementing meaningful changes. Korean avatar representation practices exist within a broader global context of virtual being development. Compared to Japanese approaches that emphasize mukokaseki, no nationality, aesthetics to avoid racial markers, Korean platforms maintain more explicit cultural aesthetics while limiting diversity. Chinese platforms show emerging trends toward increased skin tone variety and customization options, while Western platforms increasingly prioritize explicit diversity and identity affirmation. These differences reflect varying cultural values and approaches to identity representation. Korea's emphasis on aesthetic polish and cultural coherence serves domestic markets well but creates challenges for global expansion. The success of Korean cultural exports like K-pop and K-beauty has created international demand for Korean aesthetic styles, but this success also risks creating a narrow template for digital representation that excludes non-Korean identities. The global reach of Korean avatar platforms magnifies the ethical implications of representation choices. When Zepeto's 400 million users worldwide encounter limited diversity options, the platform's aesthetic choices become a form of cultural hegemony that shapes global perceptions of beauty and identity. This influence creates responsibilities that extend far beyond domestic markets. Addressing the ethical challenges of Korean avatar representation requires systematic changes across multiple dimensions of platform design and governance. Expanded customization options that include comprehensive skin tone ranges, diverse facial features, and flexible voice controls represent necessary first steps. However, technical solutions alone are insufficient without broader cultural and institutional changes. Community engagement and stakeholder involvement are essential for creating truly inclusive avatar platforms. This means partnering with marginalized communities, conducting user research across diverse demographics, and implementing feedback mechanisms that allow for continuous improvement. The current top-down approach to avatar design, driven primarily by domestic market preferences and technical capabilities, must evolve to include voices from global and diverse user communities. Transparency and accountability mechanisms are equally important. Users deserve to understand how avatars are created, what data is used, and how decisions about representation are made. This includes disclosure of voice actors, motion capture sources, and algorithmic choices that affect avatar appearance and behavior. The recent Korean legal recognition of avatar personhood in the Plave case demonstrates the growing importance of transparency in virtual identity creation. The ethics of representation in Korean avatars illuminate broader questions about power, identity, and responsibility in virtual spaces. While Korean platforms have achieved remarkable technical sophistication and commercial success, they have yet to fully address the ethical implications of their representational choices. The current emphasis on aesthetic polish and cultural coherence, while creating engaging experiences for some users, risks excluding and marginalizing others. The path forward requires balancing cultural expression with inclusive design, commercial success with ethical responsibility, and technological innovation with social justice. Korean avatar platforms have the opportunity to lead global discussions about ethical synthetic identity creation, but only if they move beyond voluntary guidelines toward meaningful implementation of diverse and inclusive representation. The lessons from Korea's avatar ecosystem extend far beyond national borders. As virtual beings become increasingly central to social interaction, entertainment, and commerce, the ethical frameworks developed in Korea will influence global practices. The choice between perpetuating existing hierarchies and creating more equitable virtual spaces remains open, but the consequences of these decisions will shape the future of digital identity for generations to come. The Korean experience demonstrates that technological capability alone is insufficient for ethical avatar creation. True progress requires conscious effort to challenge stereotypes, include marginalized voices, and prioritize user well-being over narrow aesthetic preferences. Only through such comprehensive approaches can virtual spaces fulfill their potential as sites of liberation rather than digital reproductions of existing inequalities.